Hi, I'm your host, Erica Polsinelli, and welcome to Evolve by Erica, the podcast, where we talk all things spirituality, ascension, health, wellness, and beyond. I'm so excited that you are here. Come on in. I'm so excited for this guest, Sabrina. You guys, she's such a light. She embodies health, clean living, clean food, clean everything. I could have spoken to her for hours on end. Like, this could have been a 4-hour podcast. First of all, she is the coolest. She's so successful and is the most humble, kind, down-to-earth human being. She is such a light and such an inspiration. I was sharing with her how in the beginning of my journey, everything was driven by food. I was all about like the cleanest, healthiest foods. And that's what guided me and opened me up to meditation, as you all probably know, because I've told you 80,000 times at this point. But over the last, I don't know how long, just the last period of my life, things just got a little different. It went a little array. I don't know exactly what it was, but things just shifted where I was taking out more and not eating as much. And I think as we get busier, it's easy to fall into that and just not be as mindful and as intentional with our food. And Sabrina really has reflected back to me so much that used to live within me that needed to be reignited. And I found so much inspiration through her. Most recently, she posted a juice and I just watched it and I'm like, I need that juice. And she just throws in like nothing overwhelming. She just throws in some benefits. Oh, it was blood boosting. And I was like, I need that today. I need to boost my blood today. And it was at the time I was doing all the prana practices. And then after that, she just recently posted dandelion greens and how they help draw heavy metals out of the body. And her reminders have just really reconnected me to my roots and how so much came from healthy food and healthy living. And she's just so refreshing. She's so light. She makes it look so easy. And because it can be, we just need to find the energy and the preparation and the time to carve out for it. So I'm so excited to introduce you guys to Sabrina. I'm sure so many of you already know her. If you're New York based, I'm sure you may have been to her cafe. And if you haven't, you must. It embodies the energy of spring. And we talk about that in the episode. We talk about how she was raised, how she grew up, and how that's inspired so much of what she does today. How her self-care practices are so embodied in her life routines. And she's just a true embodiment of everything she shares and practices and is such a new earth energy. Everything that we want to see come into the new earth, that is Sabrina. So I'm so excited for you guys to listen to this episode. I hope you enjoy it as much as I did, and I'll see you on the other side. I'm so excited to introduce you to the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here.
You glow.
Oh gosh.
You really do from
Thank
within.
you. It's probably like sweat from
No, it is not. I think it's from your healthy lifestyle, the way you live and everything you share.
Thank
and
you.
And you come from such an authentic place, and I'm just so excited to be here with you today.
I'm very honored and thrilled and excited, so thank you.
I feel like I found out about you from your cafe, from Spring Cafe.
That would make me happy because
I believe.
feel it's like it's hard growing your own brand and your business because you want the two to, like you want there to be synergy and you want both to do well. So I love that.
Yes, and I know Melissa would always go there and post. And
I
feel like that's probably how I saw it.
She's like my best PR rep.
She's the best. She is the best.
People are like, do you have PR? I'm like, no, just Melissa.
I can totally understand that. She is the best in that way, in all ways. And yeah, from there, I saw this amazing place and was just like, we need more of this on the earth right now. And then I got to know you through social media, and I was like, we need more of this on the earth right now. And
that's how I feel about you. I feel like that's that is the main beauty of social media, because I don't actually think I would be on it if it wasn't for work.
Yeah.
Because it really is like it takes a lot of effort and energy to remember and to do it. But that is the one thing, is that you can really connect with people and really build your brand, build your business, and meet amazing people. Like, I feel like I know you very well, but really we only message on social media.
Yeah, it's so true.
So
It's really true. And you like find your people. And
Yeah,
you
you
feel
do.
connected to these people that you don't know personally, but you feel like you do.
I know, like, I feel like I've hung out with you many times.
I feel the same. Can you take a moment to introduce yourself and how your journey began in this space of health and organic living, plant-based living?
My name is Sabrina Rudin. I'm the founder of Spring Cafe Aspen, which is an all-organic, vegetarian, all-day cafe. The first one was in Aspen. We started 11 years ago, and then 8 years later, we opened in Greenwich Village in New York City, right at the tail end of COVID. So right like in the heart of Omicron and Delta. So that was definitely interesting. And I wish I could say that I had always wanted to be in food, always wanted to be in wellness. I could never have imagined growing up that that would even be an industry that one would be in. But I was lucky my mom raised me this way. I've told the story before, but in her 20s, she just had terrible allergies, autoimmune issues, and the traditional routes weren't working for her. So she did a lot of allergy testing, tried allergy medications, antihistamines, and steroids, anti-inflammatories, and nothing worked. And she just started doing her own research on, food and health, the raw food movement, the Hippocrates Institute, Ann Wigmore, who became a mentor of hers, and really started understanding that, okay, wait, there's a connection here. So she tried elimination diets, cutting out gluten, dairy, sugar, household toxins from household cleaning supplies, makeup, and she started experimenting with that, and that's when she saw real change and real results. And then she and my dad had me. I was their only child, and basically I was like their guinea pig. And my mom, it was her great joy in life to sort of cook for us and for me, to find all the best products. It really is funny now, thinking back, because when my mom would tell me when I was little, like 10, 11, 12, starting to think about deodorant, well, we can't have anything with parabens. And there was maybe one brand at the time, Tom's of Maine,
Yep.
or a few others, the real like crunchy granola brands. And that was what I was allowed to use. I think it was Kiss My Face and Tom's of Maine at the time were the clean brands. And it's very funny now watching it unfold and watching all of the things my mom talked about back then sort of come to fruition and be more mainstream. And it turned out she was right. So that's really where it comes from. That was my whole background. And then I had the opportunity to open this type of restaurant in Aspen. I knew it would work there as a concept. I knew I always wanted to start my own thing. And I thought, okay, I'll do it. I'll go for it. And
So cool.
that was how it started, really.
Were you living here when you opened it up there?
I was living here. I had graduated college. I'd always wanted to move out to Colorado to be a snowboard instructor. And my parents
You're so
always
cool, by
said,
the way.
oh gosh,
You
no,
are.
I was not cool. I was so not cool. I was like straight A student and always very tumultuous in college, and didn't have many great friends until I even got to college, and just wanted to have an experience and sort of let it all go and figure out my path. And so my parents always said, if you do well in school, we won't raise our eyebrows. You can, go out and teach snowboarding. And that's why I moved out to Aspen and met my now husband, who was also moving out to Colorado after college. And then we wound up falling in love, and we decided to move back for a second season before we both went off to grad school. And that was when I sort of came up with the idea for Spring Cafe.
So cool. Also, going back to your mom, I want to know her astrology.
Oh gosh,
because
she would be very into
really-
telling you. Like she was always doing my charts and
Was she? And just being able to see so far into like where we were going to go as a collective, but being one of the first to do it, I'm always fascinated by those people. I tend to think there's probably some Aquarius in her chart and just that like forward thinking.
I think she's a Capricorn, but probably.
Yeah, so cool. Wow. And it's also really interesting as you were sharing your childhood and growing up that way. Sometimes we see children like rebelling against what was their norm or what, or not appreciating what our parents kind of taught us, going a different direction. And it's amazing to see how much excitement and passion comes from you through what started at your roots with your family.
Well, I
So
rebelled.
beautiful.
I mean, I always think of this story and laugh, but when I was younger, now I appreciate it and I love it. And it actually I always did, because that's a different part of the story. But sure, I wanted, blow pops and ice cream and regular pizza not made with rice crust and all of these things. And I would, my mom, one day she came home and I was sort of sitting in the stairwell in our house. We lived in a tiny little farmhouse in Katona, and I was sitting in the stairwell eating a lollipop, a sour apple blow pop. And my mom was like, "Oh my God, the dye and everything I've worked for. And Tony, it's so toxic." My dad was just like, "Pam, you got to let it go. Like, you're going to, like, you've traumatized this child." And I was just like, I just wanted to try one lollipop. So I definitely had my moments, but I think what was amazing about what my mom did was there really was no deprivation, right? It wasn't like, oh, you can't have sweets, or you can't have ice cream, or you can't have this. It was just, there was constantly better options, So there was always ice cream in our freezer, but it was Rice Dream, or it was other brands that made refined, sugar-free, vegan. So it wasn't, I never thought I was getting like an alternative or something else. I just thought, oh, I'm getting sweets and this is what they are. Or, oh, dinner's delicious tonight, and it's just a whole array of plant-based, beautiful, nutrient-dense food. It wasn't presented to me like you can have chicken fingers or you can have a kale salad, and both were put on the table. That was just our life and how we ate. And I think as I got older, I realized, okay, I feel good, like that's the most powerful thing. Is I think I started to realize I don't get headaches all the time. And when I got my period, I don't get terrible period cramps. And I'm not crashing and dying at school at 2:30, 3 p.m. trying to get through math class because I've just had Cheetos and, really sugary snacks and a Coca-Cola at lunch. Because if you're not sort of brought up on that train to eat that way, you don't naturally gravitate towards it.
Yeah.
I think humans are actually pretty intuitive. Children are very intuitive and self-regulatory when given the chance, I think. Yeah. And so when you sort of are introduced to all that goodness, I think energetically and intuitively, that's what you gravitate towards. So there were moments, of course, when I just wanted to have, the Carvel ice cream cake or the blow pop. I'm also luckier now that there are so many more options.
Yes.
Like when my mom was raising me, we didn't have tree hugger blow pops, Right. Now a lot of the kids are eating those at school because people are more aware. So my son doesn't know the difference when he thinks that's a gum lollipop.
Right.
And for, kids aren't bringing all the worst candy to school around him, because a lot of the families feel the way I feel because it has become more mainstream. Yeah. So I'm lucky in that way. My mom didn't have that, right? There weren't Unreal Snacks making, healthy Snickers bars at the time. So she did the best she could with the resources that she had. And I think that was really, why it's always been a great source of joy in my life, is food and nourishment and wholesome wellness. I just never imagined it would be a thing called wellness. It was just, for us, it was just life. Right. It was just how we lived.
Were you raised vegetarian or plant-based?
I was raised vegetarian because philosophically, my mom's a huge animal lover, my dad's a huge animal lover, and that was what, I think resonated most with them. Mm-hmm. But as I was getting older, my mom, I think, realized that I wasn't thriving solely on that, so she would introduce a little bit of wild seafood. She tried to get me to eat a little bit of poultry. I never really liked it or wanted to. I would eat fish. And then throughout my life, I've gone back and forth. My dad's been a vegetarian for 40 years. My mom is still mostly vegetarian. So we never had red meat or pork or lamb or other types of meat like that, but we did have some fish. And my mom would never cook poultry. Like she never roast a chicken for dinner, but if we went to Whole Foods or Fresh Fields before it was even Whole Foods in Westchester where we lived, she would try to get me to eat a little bit of the organic chicken, or just if she felt I needed more.
And now, what are you doing, if you feel comfortable sharing?
No, of course. I would say I eat 90% vegetarian.
Yeah.
I eat a lot of beans, grains, plants, vegetables, fruits. I think the mainstay of our diet, just because that's what I'm most comfortable cooking and how I feel most aligned. I think if it were up to me, I would be total vegetarian. But after babies and still nursing, I don't thrive that way. I don't feel my best unless I do have a tiny bit of fish or a tiny bit of dark meat turkey. So I sort of just put it in where necessary. And with my boys, all three of them, they really don't. And it's interesting because they're type A blood. And if you follow, any of the blood type stuff, I do think that there is something to that. And I've felt that my whole life, but they really do better with a little bit of animal protein, very consciously sourced.
Yeah.
And I would still say that 85 to 90% of what they eat is a vegetarian diet. For me, what's most important is, to them, it's like meat is sort of like an afterthought, or it's like something that's added to the meal. It's never what they sort of expect. It's always in addition to.
Yeah.
So for them, I think they're growing up in the same sort of norm that I did, where it's very normal to see 8 vegetables on the table in all different forms and a huge salad. And then, okay, but we're going to have a little bit of grass-fed steak from this, humanely raised source with our tacos if we're craving a little. Or sometimes my eldest will say, I just want vegetarian tonight. Or he'll say, oh my God, Mom, I'm dying for a burger. And if he says that, I know it's because he's played a lot of hockey that week, or he's craving it.
Yeah.
So I go by that.
And it's incredible to have them already access like what they intuitively need at such a young age, to be able to listen to their body and know what they need when they need it.
I think that's part of just, trusting and letting them, like eating with your kids. I mean, I've eaten with my kids since they were little, and they've always been able to self-serve or to help themselves. And anything in our house is on limits, meaning there's no like food rules in our home. If they have a sweet tooth, they go in the pantry and they grab a cookie, or they go get a Cocoa June yogurt from the fridge, or because it's all options that I'm good with, that I feel great about giving them. And a lot of people will say to me, but, how do you stop your kid from eating an entire bag of cookies? Most kids, if it's not, withheld from them, or they have healthy options, I don't know. None of my kids would really go eat an entire bag of cookies. Would they eat three cookies? Sure. And then after 3 cookies, they'd say, oh, I'm good. I don't need it anymore. I'm ready for dinner. And okay, in that moment, they ate 3 cookies. And you know what? Typically the next day or next 2 days, they have one and they say, I'm fine. So I think children are more self-regulatory than we give them credit for.
And I also think when we start really eating nutrient-dense meals, we can feel what really fuels us
100%.
And then what doesn't, and what we actually don't need as much of.
Absolutely.
The sugar is like a rabbit hole, though, because when I notice with myself, if I'm on like a dark chocolate bender where I'm eating it every night, like you just look for it and you want it.
Sugar is real, and I have a sweet tooth. I am not someone that, it's very hard for me to remove sugar from my diet. I recently did it for about 2 weeks. My hormones are a little wacky, still nursing, and it was just something I wanted to do. I had pneumonia and had to go on antibiotics for the first time in I think 13 years. So I knew my gut needed a little bit of a reset. But I am not one for cutting anything out. I'm always about just better for you options. Yeah. And fortunately or unfortunately, I think sugar is a part of life, and I love dessert as much as my kids do. But for me, I think there's a difference of, my kids have dessert every day, but it's sweetened with date sugar or coconut sugar. And while that's still sugar, I think the overall net impact on their systems compared to a child who has white sugar, corn syrup, fructose, like all of these very sort of detrimental sweeteners every day, all day is, it doesn't add up as much. You don't feel the negative effects as much, and it's not as addictive. So I think that they can feel it, as you said. Like, sometimes my kids will go to a birthday party and they'll eat whatever they want. And then it's always funny. My older one will come home and I'll say, Mom, I'm ready for a salad, because he's like, oh, it's so refreshing and good because he feels good when he eats it.
Are there non-negotiables that you do not have in your home? Things you absolutely won't
in my
let
home?
Yes.
Absolutely. I mean, in my home, I won't bring in, there's tons of things I won't bring in. I won't bring in food dye. I won't bring in preservatives. I won't bring in highly processed foods. I grocery shop probably at 4 different places around the city. I order from different co-op and bulk sites. I go to the farmer's market. In my home, I create what I would call like a utopian food world for my family. And that's everything from what we're using to what the water we're drinking to what we're eating. In the outside world, as my kids get older, just like me, they encounter things. Do I take them willingly to the ice cream truck, or would I ever take them to a candy bar or, to just a sort of more mainstream option? No. But if they're at a birthday or if they're, somewhere, we try to choose the best option of, like I call it, the best house on a bad block, of what they really want. It's very rare that they sort of beg for things that they wouldn't get anyway because they're really very happy with Unreal Snacks or, Annie's. The alternatives are so prevalent now that it's not so strange for them to get that. But in my home, I'm very, very strict about, but again, it's not like, oh, we don't have this in our home. It's just, here's an abundance of what we have in our home, and they're delighted by it because they don't know any different. They don't, they don't think, oh, my mom has So Delicious versus Haagen-Dazs.
Right.
It's not even in their vocabulary. They know that there are other things outside, but they're very happy with, with the options that they have.
Yeah. It is incredible how much we have access to today. And like the Unreal Snacks, it does taste like Snickers. So,
it tastes exactly the same. And
you could really enjoy them.
You can really enjoy them, and we do. Like last night we made popsicles for after dinner. They had them for breakfast this morning. They were sweetened with honey. They were coconut chia raspberry pops from a cookbook that we love. So it's very, my kids want a popsicle at 6 a.m. Sure, great, absolutely, have a popsicle at 6 a.m. But it's made with, it's homemade, it's sweetened with honey, it's, so it's very, I don't really have food rules in the house. I just control what I bring in.
Yeah. So let's go back to Spring Cafe. You opened it up in Aspen first. I recently saw you post about how you felt it was time to open the second location. Can you share a little bit about that process?
So I think when I opened in Aspen, I had no idea if it would work out. I didn't know what I was doing, but I felt I always have this saying, like, when the life you imagine for yourself and the life that you are actually living, sort of when those two things come together, or when those two things cross, you get sort of like a goosebump feeling, or you just know, right? There's like an energy, you just know you're doing something you're meant to do. And from the moment I opened Spring, I had that feeling. I when the first customers came in, when I watched everyone eating the food, drinking the juice, I felt I was just lit up. I was like, okay, I'm feeding people what I believe the world should be eating. And it was a long process. It was hard in Aspen to sort of get people to think that we were going to stick around and that we weren't just, because I didn't grow up there. And Aspen's a very tight-knit community. And I think people thought, oh, she opened this restaurant, but they're going to close in the off season. And we really worked really hard to build up a local following, to build up loyalty. And then it really started getting some traction, and, people all over would maybe post about it, or newspapers or magazines would pick us up. And I remember I was just starting to sort of do some stuff on my Instagram, and I got invited to speak on a panel. And we brought our chef from Aspen to New York to make food because the people who invited me to speak on the panel said, oh, could we have some Spring Cafe bites? And I'm like, we don't have a Spring Cafe in New York. How am I going to pull this off? But we brought our chef and our manager and literally cooked in my kitchen at my apartment our hero dishes for this event. And everyone went crazy for it. And I was like, we have to open in New York City. We just have to. And I thought to myself, if I could if we could do this in my kitchen and have this response, then I feel like we're ready. I feel like our food is there. And so through that, I was able to raise a little bit of money with 2 investors who just happened to love spring, and I had met them personally. And then, of course, COVID happened and the world shut down, and I really didn't know what would happen. But luckily, we only lost 1 investor through that process. The rest stayed on and said, let's just ride out the storm. And then we opened, that took 8 years from when we first opened in Aspen to when I thought, okay, maybe this is like a career, maybe this is what I want to do, not just have a little restaurant in Aspen. It also got harder to spend so much time there once I had my own kids and they started school. It was different when I could be there 6 months of the year, just me and my husband, or even when we had our first baby and we would spend so much time there because he wasn't in school and I didn't have other kids. But once we had kids and our life was sort of centered in New York and in the city, it just tugged on me. I wanted one here, and I thought there was a need for it here. And that was how we opened. And I remember right before doing it, I sort of would panic. I would rock the baby to sleep at night in the dark room, and I was like, what am I doing? Like, I can't open a restaurant in New York City. The labor, I have no idea what I'm doing. And it's very different than Aspen. Aspen's a small town, and it's like really manageable there. And there was just this voice, like this voice that said, you should do this. Like, you can do this. You can totally do this. And I just went with that. And that's how we opened here. And it's definitely been a challenge. It's been very hard, especially I think the world is a very different place for restaurants post-COVID. And for everything, really, life changed after that for a lot of people. Just their habits, their weekly routines. We're all sort of figuring out people's new schedules and routines. But it's the same feeling. When I walk in there and I see people eating this food and drinking the juice and know that it's all organic and made with such care, that's the reason I do it. So I still get that same excitement, and I still feel like I'm onto something. I just have to keep going.
Yeah. In the spiritual community, I don't know if you've heard of like the new earth that we're creating. We talk a lot about it.
I've heard a little. I haven't heard. I don't know that much. We talk about like
the new earth, like the things that we're letting go of that are so obvious that need to go once and for all, and the things that we want to see our new earth filled with. And it's like this switching of the paradigm. And I love venturing out into the world and being like, this is of the new earth, this is of the new earth. And Spring Cafe is the new earth. Like when I walk in there, I'm just like, that we truly need more places like this. And I know where I am in the city, I guess there's a little bit more, but where I am on Long Island, it's nearly impossible. We have like one really organic spot, and it's 20 minutes away from my home. And it's just like, we need more of this.
Yeah, we need it to be the norm for everyone. Too.
Everyone
in all different walks of life, it needs to be the norm.
And it's wild. It's like, why isn't it? When it's just pure, like organic, why can't it just be? And it can. We're getting there. But when like looking at Spring Cafe, you literally feel like it's spring no matter what season.
Thanks.
Was that part of the branding? Because like I think the tulips, like they're always there, whether they're there or not. They're gorgeous.
My husband's cousin, who I'm very close with, it's on Spring Street in Aspen, and he sort of helped me come up with the names. One day he was like, why don't you call it Spring Cafe? And I said, oh, I love that. And then we came to New York. It was a little too generic, and I wanted to, copyright the brand, so I just called it Spring Cafe Aspen. I wanted the origin story to be in the name. And I mean, I think that and that's why my Instagram is Spring by Sabrina. I'm a spring baby. I was born in April, and there's something about spring that I love. I say I would move somewhere warm, but I don't know that I could, because I think that transition from winter to spring is so pivotal and critical in my life. And it's just a metaphor for everything in my life. Coming from winter to spring, seeing the first cherry blossoms, feeling the sun after the darkness, that's sort of how spring is always supposed to feel, the restaurant and the season. But it's meant to be this place where you're walking down the street, you've had a really rough day, you're starving, you're struggling with some stuff, but you could like if you just could go in somewhere and sit down and have this beautiful meal, you would feel relief and you would feel so much better. And I think that food is so integral to how we feel. And when we can't cook for ourselves, or when we're exhausted, or I had a really hard time postpartum after my first, and all I wanted was, like, it was so stressful to what I could eat and couldn't eat for breastfeeding, and my mom was cooking for me. And I think just that feeling of, like, if you could just sit down and get a Highland bowl, which, is one of our forever menu items and hero items. And I think the reason people love it is it's so grounding and it's so nourishing. And you walk in and it feels like spring. Like, that feeling of just like, okay, everything's going to be okay is probably why it feels that way. So I'm happy that it does. And then, of course, we put the flowers up in New York because I just thought
they're so gorgeous.
We needed to have those flowers outside. So now we have the fake ones because, we did like a whole installation over the door because the real ones were too hard to keep up.
It's so cool that the name came from the street, but there's so much meaning behind it. And I even think of, like, life force energy, like the sprouting of life during spring and fresh juices. And
just sprouts.
I
mean, I grew up with so much sprouting. Anne Wigmore, who I mentioned, was my mom's mentor. I grew up with her sprouting in my kitchen until she tragically passed away. But literally, my mom transformed our laundry room into like a sprouting greenhouse. So broccoli, alfalfa, pea shoots. I mean, wheatgrass, we grew everything. And she had the machines, and she would dehydrate, and she would juice. And so that feeling of, like, rebirth, renewal, growth, I just think was always very central to my life. And, that's what I wanted people to feel when they walked in.
Do you use a lot of sprouts now?
I do. I wish I grew them the way my mom does. I always joke with my husband that I'm going to get this huge tower that I grew up with the lights she had lights installed in our laundry room. And I think, my husband, like, he's in on so much with me on all this, and he's into it, and he does it, and it's how we raise our kids this way together. But I think I would send everyone over the edge if I had, like, these huge sprouting towers. Yeah. So I order from Perfect Foods or just I buy at the farmer's market microgreens and sprouts. But we eat sprouts. I mean, my kids have been eating sprouts every day since they had first had solids because I put broccoli sprouts in their smoothies always.
And your husband's down with the lifestyle?
Totally
down.
I'm lucky that he was raised sort of both.
Okay.
Meaning he's from New York City, so his parents, like, he was raised either they could go to McDonald's and get a Big Mac, but they could also go to Candle Cafe and get a tofu salad. And my husband's the kind of person where I think if he had married someone who was only going the Big Mac route, like, he would have, maybe been amenable to that. But because he married someone the Candle Cafe route, he's all in. And he loves it. And I think he feels great on it. And he understands it.
Totally.
And I think Mona Van said it the other day. I was watching on her Instagram. But she said it's the kind of thing where once you know it, it's hard to unknow. And I thought that really summed it up perfectly because, it's if you're an intelligent person and you've learned something or something, once you know that something is a carcinogen, once you know that something makes you feel terrible, once you know that they're finding plastic in placentas, you can't really unknow that. And I don't think most people don't want to.
Yeah.
So he's very, I think it's a whole world that most people are not as into it as I am, but I think because he's very bright and he's very passionate, and he embraced it too because it makes him feel good, and because he wants a better world for all of our kids also.
It's so true. I always think about this because I think there's so much right now in, like, our food, our environment, all the things that, like, once we see it, we can't unsee it. We can't unknow it. And it's a blessing. But at times it's, like, so heavy to hold to, knowing
it is
what goes on and how we all just really want access to a healthy even playing fields across the board.
Yeah.
Did you develop all the menu items yourself for the cafe?
No, I had a founding chef, this amazing woman, Blanca. Her niece is my GM in New York, and she helped me develop a lot of them. We I would sort of show her pictures or dream items or make something for her, and then we would make them in our kitchen at home in Aspen where we first opened. And then she had some that she had developed over the years, and it's kind of been a marriage of those two things. And we've worked with different chefs in the last few years since opening New York, and that's sort of how we do it. Now we don't have a typical executive chef. We just sort of work with our chef from Aspen, or I create recipes and the team will, follow them or implement them. We've worked with some consulting chefs, but it's a lot of our hero items that we've had since the beginning. And then we just kind of try to innovate fun, delicious specials. The nice thing about the food we have at Spring is similar to the way that I cook is it's very simple. It's not complicated food. And so what's fun is that, we've tried more elaborate things and they kind of fall flat, but sometimes I'll just make a salad wrap at home and people will say like, oh my God, we want that. We took our vegan Caesar and we turned it into a tofu Caesar wrap and people are obsessed with it. We have it all the time now. So it's fun. It's fun to innovate because it's very simple, basic health. It's just healthy food that people want that feels attainable.
But it's also delicious.
It is.
I think that's
I
think that's really important to say, because when you go into a health food place, sometimes it's going to taste really healthy.
Yes,
and really
100%.
raw and really plain. Like, this is actually delicious, nourishing meals that you're truly enjoying. I love the tofu wrap. Is it a superhero?
The superhero burrito, yeah.
Love that.
Thank you.
And the white bean burger.
Oh, the sweet potato white bean is so good.
But I truly will get overwhelmed when I walk in because I never have the ability to just order everything and access to many healthy different
that's
options.
What I wanted. I wanted people like us to be able to walk in and eat everything on the menu.
It is the best feeling in the world. But I'm like, wait, I need to actually eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner here because I want to try.
Come on in. We would love that.
And I always say I love where my podcast studio was, but if it was closer to Spring Cover,
you could order it here.
I could.
We could do delivery.
Right. You're right. I always say, I'm like, I love we're right in Tribeca, Soho, but I need to be close to Spring.
We deliver here.
No, it's so true. You're just able to look at this menu and be like, there's so many options.
Thanks.
And I can really eat every meal there.
That makes me excited.
Incredible.
Because that's what I wanted when I opened.
You
that's
nailed
why
it.
That's why I did it.
Nailed it. How do you stay so inspired in the kitchen? I look at you while you're cooking.
Oh, God.
Like your 3 different meals every day, what it looks like. And you're just doing it with so much good energy and enthusiasm and excitement and love for it.
Thanks.
And I'm like, I want to be one of your kids because they have the best chef. I'll DM that to you all the time.
You do, and I love you because you always make me feel so good. I'll
like,
literally scramble an egg and you're like, oh my God, you're crushing it, girl.
I'm just thinking about them being able to eat this all day and you're like there making it for them. I'm like, can I come hang out?
My mom was always in the kitchen. She was always in the kitchen. There was always a pot of soup bubbling away. There was always a dessert she was trying to make. When I came home from school, there were huge snack boards and, crudité with hummus or roasted peppers and goat cheese and artichokes. And she really took a lot of joy from it. And I truly love cooking. I love grocery shopping. I love cooking. I think that there are moments when I'm like, oh, it's been the longest week or the longest day. Like, let's go out to dinner. We're taking the kids out to dinner tonight. I couldn't be more excited. But I think this kind of food, natural food, plant-based food, vegetables, fruits, when you know how simple it is to make plants, for lack of a better word, taste delicious or just healthy, simple food, you feed off the food and the inspiration sort of comes to you because it's not hard and it's not complicated. And when you know that what you're cooking, you reap so many benefits from that. This morning I always ask them in the morning, what do you want for breakfast? This morning they wanted this egg scramble that I make with onions, spinach, and I put it on buttered toast. Usually I put goat cheese on top, allergy season, they're all congested. I was like, well, not enough goat cheese. But they really wanted this scramble. And so I had just gone to the farmer's market on Wednesday. I'd gotten these gorgeous, I always make it with red onions. Chopped these red onions, and there was these onions were so incredible that there was literally purple dye from them all over my hands. And I was just like, this is so beautiful. And I showed the boys, and I was like, these are compounds that help with free radical damage. This is why it's so amazing to eat your vegetables. Like these actually help your cells, like this color right here, trying to explain that to them. And they were fascinated by it, and they were like, that's so cool. The purple's magic and it makes us feel really good. And so I think it's hard to explain because it sounds a little bit like woo, but it really, I just get inspiration from that. Nothing brings me more joy than cooking for my family, following in my mom's footsteps. I love that the kitchen is the center of our home. My kids do their homework in there. They're always in the kitchen. I love that they grab whatever they want. I love that we made popsicles last night. So I get tired and burnt out, and sometimes we have, like I'll have toast with mashed avocado for dinner and sauerkraut standing up at the kitchen counter because I'm like, I cannot cook. But I think that just being able to take a moment to really understand what you're eating, to teach yourself a few simple ways to prepare, it helps you feel inspired instead of just sort of bogged down, I guess.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
You've been inspiring me so much, just watching you show up with so much passion for it.
Thank you.
I felt like my journey started with so much passion for the food element because that's really what brought me to meditation. I changed my diet. I went plant-based, and it cracked me open. And I heard the voice, like you said, that voice you heard, I heard like, you need to meditate. I'm like, what? I don't know how to do that. Like, how am I going to do that? But the food drove me there. And over the last few years, I felt myself like come out of that and like lose the inspiration and lose the passion and eat out more. And it's there, everything is energy. And like you telling your children, like, look at what this is going to do to your body, and that intention. And taking that wisdom and thinking about that, then as you're eating it, it only makes it more powerful. And it's incredible. And I have to say, like, you really relit my fire.
I love
your
that.
Like,
well, the juice you made was gorgeous of mine. So I feel like
that
you make my recipes so beautifully.
You just say things like, this week I want to go to the farmer's market and get those greens that you spoke about, the bitter ones.
They were, the dandelion greens. They were they were so, and now I made a juice with them yesterday, and they were amazing. I think that's the other thing is it's, most people go to a supermarket every day and it's like the same sort of lettuce, carrot, tomato, cucumber right there on the, what's ever available at your local market, kale sometimes now. And I think the other thing is just I go to the farmer's market every week and I get so excited to eat greens again because I go to my, the Tibetan farmers and my Korean farmers, and like they all have different varietals. The Asian greens are so amazing, tatsoi, bok choy, Chinese broccoli, like all of these beautiful things, the green garlic, and you get inspired by the seasons. It's spring. I know asparagus will be there soon. I know green garlic is there right now. And I got to the market on Wednesday and I was like, green garlic is here. I can make my favorite eggs and my favorite salad dressing and, all these beautiful things. And it's part of like the whole, it comes back to the whole spring thing and seasons. I've always loved the seasons. And I think it's when you learn that, like, food, taking your food from the earth, taking your nourishment, we've been so deprogrammed from that with big farms, big agriculture, packaged processed food. I think when you people don't even know how delicious and inspiring food can be. It's not supposed to just be this thing like, oh, I have to make dinner and like, what can I just shove in my body that I'll like be able to not be hungry? It's supposed to be like this immense gratitude and excitement for the food that we get to eat and cook, and oh my God, how will this make me feel? And I think that's, because I think about it a lot. I'm like, why do I have this Instagram? Why do I do this? But that's really why. I think I've one mission on this earth, and that is to make it a healthier place, to take the knowledge that my mom had the foresight to raise me with, and to, we live in a world now where I am so lucky that I can really run with that. And people are awake to it and aware of it. And so I think that's why I do it. Like if I can make someone like you feel inspired or go to the farmer's market or cook a healthy meal, that to me is everything.
Yeah, you're doing it. I know, Like when you do your Q&A, so many people are writing into you wanting to do so much of what you're doing.
I know I'm about to start a newsletter because I felt like
amazing.
I feel like people want information.
That's great.
I think a lot of stuff that I post resonates the most when has information. And so I want to be able to like send to people weekly or monthly, like
I love that.
This is all of the info that you want or that you ask in Q&As.
And even maybe highlighting those things of each season that you're picking up, because I perk up when I hear about another vegetable that I haven't heard about before, like those, I keep forgetting the greens, the dandelion greens, and the benefits that they have. As soon as I heard that, it like draws the heavy metals out of you.
Well, they're great for your heavy metal smoothie.
I know. I'm like, I have to go get these. Where am I going to find them?
You go to the farmer's market. They should have it on Saturday or Friday. Someone's there that'll have them.
Every week here?
Every week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday at Union Square. And then they're all over Brooklyn.
Great.
They're at Tompkins Square Park. I just go to, the Grow NYC farmers markets.
What do you do for you? Because you do so much. Like, you're creating content. You're creating incredible content that's so passion driven. And I can see all of your energy goes into it. And I know all your energy goes into your family too. Do you have practices for you?
I do, but I will say that this is an interesting question that I get a lot, and I try to think a lot about it, because I think that for me, it's never really resonated like, okay, you have your life and then you have like your wellness that you do for yourself. Mm-hmm. And I think if that works for you, that's wonderful. But I think for me, it was always sort of more built in, if that makes sense. Like the food that I eat and the content that I create and the time that I spend with my kids and the fact that I nursed for a really long time or do motherhood my own way, to me, like that's my wellness ritual. Like my wellness ritual is truly the way I live my life. Now, sure, sometimes I just need an hour to myself, or I get a manicure, or I've left my kids maybe 2 times. I'm about to take a girls trip because I'm ready for 3 nights with some school moms. Like there are small things that I do, but for me, all that stuff is for me. Like I live in a way that feels very much for me and for the people that I love. And I think because I live in a way that feels in tune or aligned, however you want to say it, with who I am, I don't feel the need to do as many outside things, like so many appointments. I mean, I have some non-negotiables. I work out every day. I cold plunge every day, or at least 5 days a week. I need a sweat. I go to the gym. But it's more about like taking that hour for myself versus so many, I think, separate things, like what do you do for you? I think is really very much built into my life. For me, making breakfast for my kids, as crazy as this sounds, with beautiful onions from the farmer's market is for me. Like that gave me true joy this morning, is making that breakfast for them and having them enjoy it. And, I went to the gym and that was awesome too. And I felt great. But I think I try to build it into my life more. I tried to create a life where it all felt, that was my main goal. I never really knew what I wanted to do, but I knew my 2 goals were, I want to work for myself, I want to make my own rules, and I don't want to sit at a desk all day. Not because there's anything inherently wrong with the opposite of those things. Just for me, they wouldn't work. And so the fact that I can make my own schedule, that I work for myself, and that I get to work with food and ingredients that get me so excited and that I love for me, that is wellness. Yeah. That's my wellness routine.
So beautiful. I love that. Do you feel recharged when you're cooking?
Yeah,
like
I do. I live to be in the kitchen.
Yeah.
I absolutely love to cook. Sometimes if it's been a really long day and I don't know what the kids want, or I make something and they're like, ugh, we don't like this, Mom. Can we have toast? Does it kill me? Yeah. Of course. We all have those moments. But cooking, being in the kitchen, washing vegetables, like laying vegetables out on my counter, it does. It fills me up, and I love to do it.
You mentioned manicures.
Okay.
Can you tell us some clean products you like to use in that
I
department?
mean, as you can see, I'm probably not the best
the
person.
cleanest right now.
I mean, the cleanest is to do nothing.
Yeah.
I've never been a huge nail polish person. There are better brands, like 10 over 10 does a really beautiful one. Zoya. The problem with most clean, I mean, I love 10 over 10 because I love their products and I love their brand and I love the founders. But polish inherently has color. And all clean makeup is still 90% of it is petroleum based. And that is like truly one of the most toxic things in the world. That's a true carcinogen, very harmful. So for me, there's, if sure, you're going to an event, you want to use it once in a while, great, have at it. But if you're asking me, the true cleanest thing to put on your nails is nothing. Or, I think 10 over 10 and a few others make like just a clear like nail strengthener that I'll sometimes do.
The manicurists, have you heard of them? Right now I have Dazzle Dry. They're supposed to be cleaner.
Dazzle Dry is great, but they still are using petroleum-based color. And a lot of brands that I love use it. And so I just use the products that don't have it. Because unfortunately, I think if everybody was used to just makeup being a pigment or two, less vivid, it would be okay. But it's hard for people to come around to like a bronzer that's not as, a red that's not as red. My kids get red food, but it's made with beets and other things. Like we use plant colors. And for them, it's fine because that's what they're used to. But, there's definitely a difference when you look at like a Carvel cake and that blue versus like butterfly pea protein. Not much, but a tiny bit of a difference.
Totally.
And I think people like changing that in people's minds that it's not meant to, like you can have it, but it's, you can just, it's a little bit different.
And again,
hard.
once you see, you can unsee it. Like once you start to recognize the artificial, you're like, oh gosh, no.
Yeah, so that, I mean, clean manicure, like unfortunately I get manicures, but I just don't do any polish.
Don't do polish.
Like this.
Yeah.
Versus yours, which look very pretty.
Thanks. I took my gels off last summer because I was having like a disgusting reaction, like visceral, energetic. I was like,
I've tried
have to go, and I couldn't even.
I
look
love
at
how
them
it
anymore.
looks.
I love how it looks, but energetically, I'm like, no.
I mean,
going.
I think like once in a while I'll put it on if I have an event or if I'm going away for a week, like just a light pink polish. But it is hard for me. It's people, it's funny. People always say this like, oh, but you can, it's once in a while. It's very hard when you're raised knowing all this and you know it still and you find out more about it every day because now, thank God it's out, right? With social media and just content in general and the way the world is now, like there's no hiding anything. Yeah. If something causes cancer, you know it. If something hurts your endocrine system, you know it. And so it's very hard for me to, like, I have no desire to.
Yeah.
I have no desire to use, sure, I'm going on TV in a few weeks. I'll use more makeup than I maybe would for the 1 hour that I'm on. But it's very hard to do something when you know that it's so harmful. And not just for yourself, like harmful for your kids, for the earth, for the environment, for the future you're trying to create. So once you know that, to me, it's not worth it. Like you talk about energy, just energetically, it's not worth it.
You truly practice what you preach, and I love that about you.
Oh, thanks.
I also love when you talk about Botox too, because you're very clear that you don't do it. Me
It's
neither.
pretty obvious.
No, your skin is glowing.
But I have
truly
lines.
glowing.
Thank you.
But yeah, and I'm starting to see lines on myself that weren't there, and it's just like this is part of the process. It's hard in the age that we're living in, and I always say, like, I'm never going to say never because I don't know what I'm going to do. But right now I'm just trying to be as clean as I can and do everything that can just, like, support healthy aging and graceful aging. But everything else, it's just what comes with it.
I think the best thing you can do is do it from the inside out.
Yeah.
Like, if you're just junk on the inside, Botox is just not going to help you in the long run. It'll help take this wrinkle away that I have here, these lines. But I'm also lucky. I think it all went part of how I was raised. Like, my mom never got Botox. She's 70, and I'm just not, I'm used to seeing people with faces that have aged gracefully, but my mom always had amazing skin, and she always glowed because of how she ate, because of the products that she used. And sure, is it funny? Sometimes I look in the mirror and I think I am literally the only one of my friends with like a frown line in between my eyebrows, or a squinting line, whatever it's from, because I surf, I'm always in the sun. But it just, for me, that's a hard no, non-negotiable. I mean, you couldn't pay me to inject it into my skin. I think it's great if it works for you and you feel good doing it, but I think it's a shame that that's the standard that we've set for ourselves and for young women and for young girls.
I was just listening to a podcast recently, and they were saying how they were watching My Best Friend's Wedding. Do you remember that movie?
Of course.
And the actresses, Julia Roberts and Cameron Diaz, right? Yeah. Their faces were moving.
Yeah.
And now in movies and in life, like, it's a different standard. And like, if your face moves, people think that they need to stop that from happening because eventually it could be wrinkles. It's so interesting. And I just appreciated when you shared so openly that like, it's not something you do, because I think it can be helpful for other people to hear that and be like, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one that it doesn't resonate with, and just have more courage to listen to what's within them.
I wish, I think my last remaining friend who doesn't get Botox just got Botox. It's, it's funny, but I joke with my friends. I'm like, I'm going to be the wrinkled one, like around you guys, or I'm going to be like what you would look like if you didn't get it. Like, but yeah, it doesn't resonate with me. I think it comes from the inside out. I think that's still, like these standards of beauty, we've made a lot of progress, but we're still sort of missing the plot a little bit.
Totally.
When it comes to, what we think people should look like as they age, or what we think we need to do to our face to look perfect, or...
What deodorant do you use? As I was getting ready today, I'm like, I need to ask.
It's funny. I didn't use for a long time.
Okay. I was actually going to say, do you use?
Well, what's so funny is I used, there's a few different ones. And then I stopped for a while. Mm-hmm. I mean, this sounds crazy, but it is true. Like, when you're very clean, when you eat very well and you don't take in a lot of chemicals and a lot of toxins, when you, like, I eat very little animal products or protein. Like, I eat a tiny bit of fish. I think, like, when you don't smell as much, like, you don't need as much deodorant. And with my hormones now, like nursing, I need it a little bit more. So I use Humble. There's a brand, I think it's called Humble. I'll send it to you. But so they're really good. Now there's a lot of great options. But I think it's also like, just the cleaner you are, the better you smell. I mean, I hate to.
Yeah. Do you use dry shampoo?
No. I wash my hair like once or twice a week, and I use John Masters or Inner Sense. There's some great companies now doing really good, clean, thoughtful beauty.
Yeah.
Cora Organics, Lene, like a lot of Tata Harper, a lot of great brands. But I think I'm just a more minimal person when it comes to that. And, I love products. I love creams and serums and natural makeup or beauty products, but I really don't use a ton of stuff. I use sort of like the bare minimum that I need.
Yeah. Those are all my questions. I literally had those specific questions for you at the end. I'm like, I need to get her deodorant.
I think it's called Humble. I'm going to literally take a picture and send it to you.
Okay.
But it's
I
actually
try not
really
to wear
good.
it either. Have you heard of Primally Pure?
Yes, but I haven't tried it. Is that deodorant?
Yeah, I think it's not vegan. There's animal products in it. I think like milk possibly.
I only use
vegan ones.
So even though I'm not vegan at all, I think vegan and vegetarian lifestyle is what just philosophically what I'm most resonates most with me. So like I wear all vegan clothes. Like I only wear vegan silk or vegan leather. Yeah, for about 20 years now. And I use only vegan products. So I think it's like I'll eat it if I need it to thrive and to not have a mental breakdown. Like when I was vegetarian for my whole first pregnancy and I almost died after that. And I refused to eat fish. And then when I finally ate a piece of fish for the first time, I literally felt in my brain like the opening. And since then I listened to my body and what it needs. But it's very much a necessity thing. So like for me, I won't do it just for cosmetic or, fashion.
Do you have brands? I'm very into the clothing right now. Like that's like the next level of it. Thank you. But the materials, all of a sudden they're speaking to me. And as I'm putting a shirt on, it's like, it's telling me no.
I was only
you.
allowed to wear like organic cotton growing up. So I'm a little bit like that. Like my kids are all in Hannah Anderson and organic, like goat certified cotton. And it's like a joke because now my oldest one's like, I need a blazer, Mom. Like it's like my husband's like, they can't just wear these like organic clothes from Molo, which is amazing. Like we're obsessed. But so yeah, I mean, there's some great sustainable brands. This is Victoria and Woods. The shoes Victoria and Woods. They do some great things. Stella McCartney is obviously, I think, the most groundbreaking.
Say that again?
Stella McCartney.
Really?
She's phenomenal.
Oh, I didn't know that she was sustainable.
She's all vegan.
Okay.
And she does like the mushroom bat. She makes
awesome
the vegan leather from mushrooms and responsibly sourced wool. And she's really passionate about it and cares about it. So I think she does a really beautiful job. There are a lot of brands starting to do it now. But, I mean, all my basics, I really just buy, like, organic cotton jeans, organic cotton T-shirts. I try to be as thoughtful as possible. Yeah. But, again, I'm really lucky that wasn't – it almost wasn't, like, such a choice I had to make. It was a choice I had to make to keep going.
Yeah.
But, it was those seeds were planted from a very early age, and it all – it all comes together. It's all connected in one thing.
And the purer you become within yourself and through your food, the more aware you become to all the things outside of you as well. And it's interesting because that's certainly coming up for me. So I'm going to look into those brands and be more mindful. I also saw a TikTok on how, which makes so much sense, but when this person really spelt it out, it was talking about the actual frequency, like the hertz of different material.
Oh, interesting.
And why different types of wool have a very high frequency and organic cottons, and then the other frequencies. And it's like, whoa, my physical body doesn't want to hang out in that frequency.
And just
all
like,
day.
I mean, bras, like, I wasn't allowed to wear underwire bras when I was younger. I still don't own any. I just wear organic cotton underwire free bra. Things that I sometimes struggle with, like how much to share, because I don't want people to think that I hate to make the world seem like it's this place where everything's going to kill you. I think it's a delicate balance, sort of finding. But I try to sort of live in a way in every facet of my life of just a reflection of what the best of what the world is and what the world should be and what it can be for everyone. And that's sort of my way of like putting that out into the universe.
You certainly do it.
Oh,
and I'm beyond grateful for everything you share on a personal level, but also a collective level, and how many people you're impacting and how many people you're feeding all of this amazing, healthy, organic, delicious food to. And I can't wait for many more days at the cafe. We have to go there for lunch one day soon.
Or we'll deliver. Yeah.
That's true too. Thank you so much. Where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Spring by Sabrina, or the cafe, Spring Cafe Aspen. And soon I'll have a website and a newsletter.
Oh, yay. That's so exciting.
But Spring by Sabrina is where I share all of this stuff that you love.
All your magic, all your light.
Oh, God. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
It's such an honor to be here.
You're so sweet. Thank you.
No, I loved it.
Guys, as you were able to hear and see, I could have spoken to Sabrina for the full day. She brings so much wisdom And she does it from such a place of authenticity and passion. And I think that's what attracts me to her the most. I hope you're inspired by her. I know we're all going to be looking out for when she drops her newsletter. But for now, you can follow her on Instagram and just check out what she's doing there. Visit the cafe if you can. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to see you next time.